3 people entered the desert near Skinwalker Ranch, chasing lights they said weren't human. Only one came back running, barefoot and terrified. He never spoke of what happened, not once. Tonight, we tried to piece together the silence. Chapter 1. The Ranch. No one talks about their S. A place in northeastern Utah. That S been called the strangest spot in America. Some say it's cursed. Others believe it's a doorway to another world. But most people simply don't talk about it. Locals call it the Skinwalker Ranch. It sits quietly in the Uinta Basin somewhere between Roosevelt and Fort Dodge. Not just 1 or 2 strange stories, but hundreds. Some of the events are so strange, they sound made up, but they're not. From the outside, it looks like any other ranch. Fences, open land, a few small buildings, but step past the gates, and you enter a place where the rules of reality seem to bend. For decades, people have reported bizarre activity around the ranch. Lights in the sky that change direction instantly, without sound. Voices coming from nowhere. Cattle found dead with surgical precision but with no blood. Time slips, no predators, no signs of struggle. Several times. But it didn't die. It didn't even bleed. People losing hours, then waking up miles away from where they started. For years, his team ran secret experiments on the property. What they found, they never fully released to the public. Simple, practical people. And at first, they thought the place was just isolated. Some of the earliest reports go back to the 1950s. But the stories didn't become public until the 1990s, when a family named Sherman bought the ranch. Radiation spikes, unseen forces pushing people to the ground, cameras being destroyed without explanation, objects moving by themselves. It refers to a type of a person who has chosen to abandon humanity for dark power, someone who can wear the skin of animals or people. They were cattle ranchers. Then their dogs started barking at shadows. He believed there was something happening at the ranch that couldn't be explained, and he wanted to study it. Then one of their cows was found mutilated. Said he saw lights hovering silently above the ranch late at night. They weren't planes. They didn't blink. And when he aimed his flashlight at them, they vanished. Then they saw it, what they later described as a massive, wolf-like creature, with eyes that glowed red. When he woke up, his GPS showed he had moved 6 miles without ever standing up. They shot it. That's when they knew something was wrong. It's not a myth, a government testing site, a magnetic anomaly. It's a warning, a creaky house, an old asylum, a graveyard. The Shermans sold the property within 2 years, not because they were done with ranching, but because they were terrified. The buyer, a billionaire named Robert Bigelow. He was a hotel magnate with a passion for the unknown. He brought in scientists, physicists, military contractors. No wind, no movement, just an overwhelming sense that something is nearby but hiding. But some of it leaked. They lose time. They become paranoid. They isolate themselves. Electromagnetic anomalies. And then there was the thing they never caught on tape, but that multiple people swore they saw. A dark, humanoid figure crawling out of a hole in the ground and disappearing into the sky. That was the moment when people stopped calling it a haunted ranch and started calling it something else, something more dangerous. Cameras, warning signs, armed patrols. In recent years, Skinwalker Ranch has been the subject of documentaries, podcasts, and even a reality TV series, but none of that changes how the locals feel. Many people who live nearby still won't say its name out loud. In fact, in Navajo culture, the term skinwalker itself is considered taboo. It's not a joke, and those who understand the legend know, talking about a skinwalker can invite its attention. That's why, even today, many residents of the Uinta Basin keep their stories to themselves, but some have started to come forward. One man, who worked for the local utility company, a former soldier who was stationed near the area, reported losing consciousness while hiking near the property. Even people just passing by the ranch driving along the highway have described sudden feelings of panic, dizziness, and a sensation of being watched. And then, there's the silence. Not just quiet, but an unnatural, dead silence that settles over the ranch at night. No crickets. So, what is Skinwalker Ranch? Is it Kurt's land? Or something older? Something that's been here long before we had names for it? We don't know. And and that's what makes it so dangerous. You see, most haunted places are explainable, but Skinwalker Ranch is different. It doesn't follow patterns. It doesn't react the same way twice. And sometimes, it doesn't just watch. It takes. Over the years, dozens of stories have emerged about people who went near the ranch and came back. They forget where they've been. One man, who spent just 72 hours on the ranch, later moved to Alaska and cut all ties with his family. He refused to say why. Another had a full mental breakdown, claiming he could still hear the ground breathing. And yet, despite all of this, the ranch remains open, quietly monitored, heavily secured, and still off limits to the general public. It's surrounded by high fences. If there's nothing there, why all the protection? And if there is something there, what is it? In the next chapter, we'll talk about one of the strangest disappearances connected to the land near Skinwalker Ranch, a case that never made national headlines, a case without evidence, suspects, or answers. Only one person survived to tell the story, but he never did, because some things are better left unsaid. Chapter 2. The disappearance in the desert. The story begins on a quiet night in 2013. Marcus and Joel set out for a camping trip near the borders of Skinwalker Ranch. They weren't thrill seekers. They weren't ghost hunters. Just three young men who had grown up in Utah and wanted to explore the desert they thought they knew. They left a message with Ethan's brother, saying they'd be back by morning. It was supposed to be easy. They packed light, just enough gear for one night, a small tent, some food, and a portable radio. But sometime after midnight, everything changed. It was from Ethan's phone, but the message was just static, broken up by what sounded like heavy breathing. In the background, a faint voice whispered something unintelligible. Then, the call cut off. At around 1:30 a.m., Ethan's brother received a strange voicemail. That was the last anyone heard from them. The next morning, when they didn't return, a search team was sent out. By noon, their truck was found abandoned off a dirt road about 6 miles from the ranch's restricted fence line. The keys were still in the ignition. The doors were locked. Their phones were inside, but none had signal. There were no signs of struggle, no footprints, no gear. His clothes were torn, his face scratched, and his feet were bleeding. He couldn't speak. He didn't seem to recognize the people who found him. No tire tracks besides their own. Then, just after sunset, searchers made a discovery. Joel, one of the three, was found barefoot, wandering through the desert 15 miles from the truck. They move without sound, shift direction in midair, and vanish instantly. Some glow white, others are blue, green, even red. People whose last messages included strange lights, shapes in the sky, or voices in the dark. He was taken to a nearby hospital in Roosevelt, where doctors said he was severely dehydrated and in a state of extreme shock. He sent his wife a picture of a glowing orb in the distance. Then his phone went dark. Their camera was later recovered. It showed footage of the students walking towards something glowing behind the trees. Then the screen cuts to static. Many believed it, confirmed what the locals had always feared. His body was found 2 days later, face down in the dirt with no injuries and no explanation. But physically, he was unharmed. The next day, Joel finally said a few words, not to police, not to doctors, but to a nurse. In the early morning hours, all he said was, "We shouldn't have followed the lights." And after that, nothing, no memories. He refused to talk about what had happened. No more words. The other two, Ethan and Marcus, were never found. No signs of violence, no clues. It was as if they had simply vanished. The official report listed them as missing under unknown circumstances. But locals had a different theory. They believed the lights the men followed weren't natural. He changed his name and cut contact with his friends and family. You see, lights in the sky have been reported near the ranch for decades. They're not like aircraft, and people who chase them don't always come back. Not even clothing. Not even bones. Over the years there have been similar disappearances. Hikers, hunters, campers, open visibility for miles. There are no caves, no deep forest. One man, a trucker from Arizona, stopped for the night near the basin. Another case involved a group of college students filming a documentary about the ranch. The students were never seen again. So when Joel said we shouldn't have followed the lights, that some intelligence is drawing people in. Some believe it's a trick, a lure, not to harm people directly, but to take them. Where and why, we still don't know. But there's another layer to Joel's story that makes things even stranger. After his release from the hospital, Joel moved away from Utah. A private investigator hired by Ethan's parents tracked him down 2 years later, living in Oregon. But he refused to speak. When asked if he remembered what happened that night, he replied, "I remember everything. That's why I'll never talk about it." That was the last confirmed contact anyone had with him. Some say he was threatened. Others believe the trauma was too much. But here's the part that truly chills people. Joel had a notebook with him the night he was found. It was in his jacket pocket, water damaged, torn, but one page survived. It simply read, "It wasn't just the lights, it was what came after." No one knows what that means. Authorities conducted several search efforts over the following weeks. Dogs, helicopters, ground teams, but no trace of Ethan or Marcus ever surfaced. And in that region, the land is flat. So how do two full-grown men disappear without leaving a single sign behind? Unless they were taken. This possibility, this terrifying idea, is what's kept the case alive all these years. To this day, neither man has ever been declared legally dead. Their families still hold out hope. But what that hope looks like now is unclear. Even the sheriff involved in the investigation eventually retired early. He told a friend privately, "I've seen everything, but this was different. That place doesn't follow our rules." So what did Joel and his friends see that night? What were the lights? What was the thing that came after? We don't have answers, but we do know this. Joel isn't the only person who's seen them, and he won't be the last. If you enjoyed this chapter and want to keep exploring the mystery, don't forget hit the like button, subscribe, and let us know what you think happened out there in the comments. Next, we go deeper into the legend itself. Where did the idea of the Skinwalker come from? Is it just a myth or something more? Let's find out. In Chapter 3, Skinwalker, Legend or Real Threat. Skinwalker Ranch. For decades, this name has been tied to a terrifying legend, one that many in the Native American community hold as sacred, as real as the sun rising every morning. But for the rest of us, it's just another ghost story, or so we thought. The truth is far darker, a term used to describe someone who has taken the power of shape-shifting, abandoning humanity in favor of darker, more dangerous forces. The word Yi-Nal-Lushi is used by the Navajo people to refer to these beings. They become it, moving with the creature's instincts, seeing through its eyes. This is where the terror begins for anyone who comes into contact with them. To become a skinwalker, one has to perform an unspeakable act, usually the murder of a close relative. It translates roughly to with it. He goes on all fours. To truly understand what happened at Skinwalker Ranch, we need to understand what a skinwalker is, and yes, they can transform into animals, wolves, coyotes, bears, even birds. But it's the way they transform that's terrifying. One survivor from a local ranch described a creature crawling on all fours, but with a strange, jerky, unnatural movement. The limbs didn't move in the way an animal should. Instead, it was almost as if it were a human trying to fit into the body of a wolf. The skinwalker comes from Navajo culture. It's not just a creature, it's a curse. They're often described as tall, with glowing eyes that seem to follow you, no matter where you go. It's not a smell you forget. Once you've experienced it, it stays with you. It gets under your skin. Some have even reported hearing voices calling out to them in the dead of night. Voices they recognize, but when they turn around, there's no one there. But skinwalkers aren't just shapeshifters in the usual sense. Never look into its eyes. Never let it know you're aware of its presence. Because once it knows it's been seen, it will pursue you relentlessly, without mercy. You turn around, and there's no one there. You keep walking. The voice calls again, closer this time, maybe with a hint of familiarity. Others believe it was a trap, an invitation. Your heart races. You think it's a friend. You think it's someone you know. Well, they were lucky. The fact that Joel even made it out of the desert alive is an anomaly in itself. But the cost was too high. The trauma he experienced from that night, the terror in his eyes when he returned, the strange words he spoke afterward all point to a single, terrifying possibility. People who go near Skinwalker Ranch are never quite the same when they leave. They come back changed, whether they've encountered the Skinwalker itself or just felt its presence. Their stories get more and more distorted, their memories more and more fragmented, and for some, the journey doesn't end with them returning home. The nightmares don't stop. The voices don't stop. It was something much older and far more dangerous. It's not a monster that charges at you with fangs bare. It's something much more subtle, something that lures you in, a leader, a central entity that controls the pack, that directs the movements of these creatures. And this master is not bound by time or space. Some believe the government has known about the strange activity for years, and that the truth is being covered up. Others believe the ranch is tied to ancient forces that were never meant to be disturbed. Do you think Joel and his friends were the victims of something supernatural or just a series of strange coincidences? It exists in multiple places at once. That gets you to trust it, to follow it. But the events that follow their disappearance, their panic, the strange voicemails seem to point to one chilling conclusion. A skinwalker doesn't just wear the skin of an animal. This is the price they pay to gain their power. So, when strange things started happening near Skinwalker Ranch, it wasn't just coincidence. It wasn't some unexplained phenomenon. It was something ancient, something malevolent. It's a place where time itself can bend, where the lines between worlds blur. But what really separates the Skinwalker legend from the countless other cryptids is its purpose. A skinwalker is not a passive creature that roams the woods. It's a predator, a hunter, and its prey, humans. There are numerous reports of people seeing dark, humanoid figures near the ranch. But here's where things get truly disturbing. Skinwalkers are not bound by the same physical laws we are. They can move in ways that defy logic, and then there's the smell. People who have encountered these creatures often report a sickening odor like rotting flesh or burning hair that fills the air. And, perhaps the most terrifying part of the Skinwalker legend, they can imitate your voice. Imagine walking alone in the wilderness, hearing someone call your name, but it's not. It's the skin. And this is where the danger lies, not just in the creature itself, but in how it manipulates you. The Navajo have always warned that if you see a skinwalker, you should never engage with it. And this is exactly what some believe happened to Ethan, Marcus, and Joel. We don't know for sure if the creature they encountered that night was a skinwalker. The lights they saw in the sky, that wasn't an aircraft. It wasn't a meteor. It wasn't even an anomaly. Some think the lights were a lure, a signal, designed to pull people closer to the ranch, closer to the skin. And the survivors, Joel saw something that no one should ever see. And once you've seen it, you can never unsee it. There are rumors that have circulated among locals and investigators that skinwalkers have a master. Could that have been what was waiting for Joel and his friends? Could that have been what called them to the desert that night? If we look at the entire history of the ranch, there's something unsettlingly consistent. But there are also reports of people who've seen a different kind of creature near the ranch. Not a skinwalker, but something else, something equally dangerous. Some believe the Skinwalker Ranch is a gateway, a place where multiple entities, both physical and supernatural, and the more we try to understand it, the deeper the mystery becomes. So, what did Joel and his friends encounter that night? Was it truly a skinwalker, or was it something else entirely? Something older? We'll never know for sure. But the question remains, why were they drawn there? Was it just curiosity, or was it something more? In the next chapter, we'll delve into the theories surrounding the ranch. What do you believe? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below. What do you think happened at Skinwalker Ranch? Let's dive deeper into the mysteries in the next chapter. Chapter 4. When the searchers became the witnesses, the rescue teams arrived just before dawn. Helicopters circled overhead, cutting through the dark clouds like blades. On the ground, local law enforcement coordinated with search and rescue units from multiple counties. Everyone knew time was against them. The hikers' campsite had been found. Yes, but it wasn't just abandoned. It was destroyed. Tents ripped from the inside. Trained in rough terrain, they fanned out across the mountain slopes, calling names, scanning the tree lines, checking ravines and creek beds. They were methodical, professional, focused, gear scattered, as if flung by some invisible force. And there were those claw marks, long, wide gashes in the trees, not from a bear, not from any animal they knew, not wind, not birds, something else. And then it stopped, like it knew we were listening. In these parts, especially in winter, missing people didn't stay alive long if they were still alive at all. But this wasn't a typical search. What started as a missing persons case had already taken a strange turn. Tall, hunched, grey, ... watching us. He didn't speak of it again. Static, garbled words, complete silence. And it wasn't just the radios. Compasses started spinning, GPS units blinked out, phones drained in minutes. One search dog refused to move forward, whining and trembling until its handler pulled it back. A trained German shepherd shaken to the core. A torn parka. One boot. A glove. Each item laid out in a strange pattern, as if deliberately placed. They followed it, and found nothing. Not for safety but because his men refused to go further. These were veterans, ex-military outdoorsmen, and they were afraid. No footprints, no blood, just silence. He asked a local elder from a nearby tribal community to meet with them. The mountain, it seemed, didn't want to be mapped or reached. Still, the teams pushed forward. One man thought they were drones. Another said those weren't machines. They were watching, not by men, not by beasts, but by something that walks between. But then something changed. By mid-morning, the first searchers began reporting problems with their radios. Then came the sounds. A deputy from Iron County later described it like this. It was like a low whistle, but coming from everywhere at once. Confusion, division. A few even left the search altogether, breaking protocol without explanation. Another man, a volunteer searcher from a nearby town, claimed he saw a figure move between the trees. It didn't just block sight, it seemed to block sound. Radios died completely. Shouts faded. One group, a trio of searchers, was missing for nearly 2 hours before they reappeared rattled and silent. One of them reportedly threw away his radio when they returned, saying, "In the trees, smiling at me. It was whispering at me. The radio!" But no one was on the other end. The deeper they went into the forest, the more the land seemed to reject them. Then came the fog. Thick, sudden, almost unnatural. It rolled in around noon, even though no weather service predicted it. Still, despite the fear, they kept looking, because 3 people were still missing. By evening, one of the teams made a partial discovery, a trail of clothing. The sheriff called off the deeper parts of the search that night. That night, in the temporary command center, 2 officers reported seeing lights in the trees, white bluish orbs, drifting between the branches like floating lanterns. The next morning, the sheriff made an unusual request. The elder's name has been withheld, but his words were later quoted in an internal report that was quietly leaked. He said, "You entered a place you were not invited to. The ones you seek may not return because they've been taken." The team didn't know how to respond, but then he added, "The Skinwalker is not always seen. It doesn't always take form. Sometimes it's just presence." And with that, he left. That evening, the lead investigator left the mountain. Not officially, not in any report, but he was done. The next few days brought more strangeness. Equipment failed constantly. Some of the officers began reporting nightmares, visions of being chased, of figures standing over them. One man, a Forest Service ranger with 20 years of experience, refused to go back up the trail. His reason, I saw my own face. The search officially ended on day 12. The 3 hikers were never found, not even remains. No signs of foul play, no signs of accident, just absence. The official statement listed exposure or misadventure as the likely cause, but those who were there, who walked that mountain, heard the whispers, saw the fog, and watched as searchers broke down, knew better. They hadn't just lost people, they'd entered something ancient, something that watched, and now something that followed them home. Chapter 5: The mystery that still haunts the mountain. Weeks passed, then months. The snow returned to the mountains of southern Utah, blanketing everything in silence once again. Nature covered the campsite. The torn tents, the clawed trees. Whatever trail the 3 hikers might have left was now buried under feet of white, but the story didn't fade. It lingered in whispers, in rumors, in late-night conversations between rangers and deputies who didn't know what to believe anymore. One of the lead volunteers, a firefighter named Craig Miller, later confessed during an off-the-record podcast that he still dreams about the search. We were walking a ridgeline when I saw what looked like a person standing way down in the valley. Just standing there, not moving. I called it in, raised my binoculars, but when I looked again there was no one there, and yet I couldn't shake the feeling they were still watching. It's as if that mountain, or something on it, marked them forever. "There's this moment I can't get out of my head," he said. Tucked inside a crevice was a camera, cracked, weathered, but still intact. Inside, a partially damaged memory card. He paused. "I don't talk about that part of the job anymore, not after what happened." The other searchers shared similar stories, strange feelings that never left them. One man moved states entirely, another joined a monastery, and then there was the final clue. 6 months after the disappearance, a group of rock climbers reported finding something strange on a cliffside far north of the original search area. Law enforcement never released what was on that card, but sources close to the investigation say it contained just 2 files. The first was a short video, shot at night. The footage showed 3 people, presumably the missing hikers, sitting around a fire. They're laughing, talking about coyotes. The camera turns upward for a moment, catching the stars, then pans back down. Suddenly, the sound changes. Something rustles in the trees. A figure, barely visible, but tall, thin, wrong. The hikers go silent, then a whisper. One of them says, "Did you hear that? It's back." Cut to black. The second file was a photo, blurry, zoomed in, unofficial ones, spray painted on trees, nailed to signposts. The post claimed the case had drawn interest from non-local intelligence groups due to its alignment with other high strangeness clusters in the region. It shows something in the trees. Some say it had antlers, privately, quietly. Some believe their loved ones got lost. Others are convinced something darker happened, something that no one wants to admit. Others swear it had a human face, but no one can agree, because no one wants to look at it for more than a second. The official police statement called the photo inconclusive, but the image was quietly flagged by a federal agency. That detail only came to light because a whistleblower posted about it on a now-deleted Reddit thread, whatever that means. When a documentary crew tried to contact him, they were told he'd gone off-grid, no forwarding address, no phone, just gone. The families of the missing still search, and the locals, they've stopped going near that area, and we may never know which. We explore the mysteries that others overlook, the ones that don't have easy answers, and the ones that, maybe, never will. The mountain trail is still open, technically, but warnings have been posted. Stay out. Don't follow the whistles. It wears your face. These aren't jokes. They're desperate messages from people who've seen too much and said too little. But maybe that's why they matter. Even the tribal elder who spoke to the sheriff has disappeared from public life. What's left are stories. Stories of strange lights, of voices in the woods, of dreams that don't belong to you, and of something ancient and walks among us when the air turns cold. To this day, no bodies have been found. No answers have been offered, and that mountain in southern Utah remains quiet. But if you listen closely, you might still hear the whispers. Stories like this are hard to accept. They challenge what we think we know about the world, about the rules, about what's possible. Because somewhere out there, 3 lives ended, or disappeared, or were taken. If this story stayed with you, if it made you wonder, or question, or feel that chill in the dark, consider subscribing to Dark Truths. Leave a comment below. What do you think happened in those woods? Until next time, stay curious and stay safe.